Hey there, it's Mitzi. Welcome to my channel. So today I wanted to continue my Victober celebration with my take on The Moonstone by Wilkie Collins. This was to meet Kate's challenge, which was to read a sensation novel. And I thought it was fantastic. To me, it's a cross between a soap opera, The Game of Clue, and Indiana Jones. That pretty much sums up this story. It starts off super exciting. What happens is there's this legend of this yellow diamond, the Moonstone, and it's this sacred diamond in India. And this British soldier who is fighting in India, he takes the Moonstone back home with him. And then later on, he leaves this Moonstone to his niece in his will. So the story really takes off on the night of Rachel, his niece's 18th birthday, because that's when she's going to receive the Moonstone. And so on that night they have a party for Rachel, and she wears the Moonstone on her dress, and then during the night the Moonstone is stolen, and so that's how the story kicks off. So that makes it super exciting. The second thing was the Game of Clue, because when I was a kid I loved that game, the board game Clue. I loved guessing, who did it, and Colonel Mustard did it with the revolver in the conservatory or whatever. I really enjoyed that game. So it reminded me of that because it's the typical detective story. All those elements that you read in a detective story is in this book, and even more. There's like all these party guests, and so they're all suspects, and you have all these red herrings and clues, like there's some kind of clothing with a stain, and there's these Indian jugglers that end up at the house that night. So there's all these things going on, of course, that are clues to what happened to the Moonstone. So that makes it super exciting as well. But for me, the thing that made it the most fun was the soap opera aspect. And what I mean by that is really how Wilkie Collins chose to tell this story. The how he told the story, to me, was the most fun of all. It's an epistolary novel, so there's different people who give their perspective on what happened. And they're all interesting characters, and they all play a part, of course, in the plot. But they all have these quirks about them that are super funny. Like the first guy telling the story, he is obsessed with the book Robinson Crusoe, and so it's like his Bible. I mean, he reads it to relax in the afternoons. He reads it for inspiration. I mean, he's so obsessed with Robinson Crusoe, it's like he looks to Robinson Crusoe to make huge decisions in his life. I mean, that's how much he loves Robinson Crusoe. And it's things like that with all of the different points of view through the story, the telling of this, what happened to the Moonstone. So I love that part of it. They are funny narrators. So I enjoyed that a lot. And so I really enjoyed the Moonstone. I thought that it was better than a lot of the detective stories I read today. A lot of those are just plot driven. It's who took the Moonstone, basically. But in this story, there's so much more. There's so many layers. It's a pretty complex story, and the characters are great. I love the characters in the story as well. There's also some romance, so that made it a lot of fun too. But I loved it. I thought it was great. But something else I wanted to mention is my reading experience based on this particular edition. I mentioned in another video of how I found this edition at an estate sale. And as soon as I saw it, it's the funniest thing, because it was like, I just had this anticipation that I was going to love this book. And when I brought it home and, just opened it up, I don't know, it's old and has the old book smell. That was fun. But then in the very front, whoever owned this book had clipped this little piece of paper that has quotes about the Moonstone. For instance, there's one here by T.S. Eliot. It says, "The first, the longest, and the best of the detective novels." And then Dorothy Sayers says, "Of all the detective novels in the English language, this is the best." G.K. Chesterton. It is probably the best detective tale in the world. And so I just thought that was cute that it had this little clipping that was inside the book too. It just, I don't know, it just made it special for me to read it from this edition. And I found that with several books, when I reread a book and I read it in a different format, for some reason I have a totally different experience when I read that book. I don't know if you're like that or not. If you are, leave a comment about maybe an edition that you've read that just brought a little more enjoyment to reading the book. Anyway, I loved it, and I loved reading out of this particular edition. So I do recommend The Moonstone. It was fantastic. If you need a sensation novel, that's a great one to meet that challenge. Lately I've been reading some of the short stories from Gothic Tales, and I'll talk more about that later. And then I've also been reading Ruth, which is also by Elizabeth Gaskell. The Gothic Tales is by her, and this is as well. And I'm about 100 pages into this one, and it's really good too. So I'm having a great Victober. It's off to a great start. So how about you? What are you reading for Victober? Let me know in the comments. And also, if you know of another book that's like The Moonstone, leave a comment so that I can check that one out too. So I hope your Victober is off to a great start. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon.